The French Revolution brought many cool things to the world like guillotines, Switzerland, freedom and other things. It also took many awesome things like the French monarchy and many lives. The people of France lived in poverty. Getting by each day was extremely difficult. You would think it's because the monarchy has no money to help the people. Why else would the people be broke? Nah, the nobles and clergy lived in life surrounded by gold. The monarchy would do anything with the money other than give it to the poor people of France. Nobody in France wanted to live like this, so they would do what any normal person would do. Storm the Bastille, of course, and begin the French Revolution. On July 14th, 1789, about 1,000 French civilian insurgents stormed the Bastille. The insurgents would end up stealing weapons, gunpowder and cannons, while also freeing a couple prisoners.
Jestem RPK, żołnierzem wysłanym w podziemne zwiady. DDK, poznaj moje zasady. Jestem RPK.
Only about 3 weeks after the storming of the Bastille, feudal privileges would be abolished. The church and state would become separate, and made the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Everything now seemed just fine in France. Not so fast. There were many food shortages in France and the economy kept getting weaker. On October 5th, many women would protest outside the Hotel de Ville because of the outrageous food prices and shortages. At first this seemed like an everyday French protest, but it turned into a rebellion. The women would storm the Hotel de Ville, steal all the weapons. If it wasn't already bad enough for the French monarchy, 7,000 women would storm the Palace of Versailles. Commander-in-Chief Lafayette told Louis XVI to relocate to Paris because the protesters were getting closer. Next morning the protesters would break into the Palace of Versailles, searching for Marie Antoinette. The protesters would ransack the entire palace and kill some guards. The protests would soon die down and order would be restored. After the march on Versailles, King Louis and Marie Antoinette were forced to move to Paris where they were watched by the National Guard. The revolutionaries would basically have control over the monarchy. This meant that the king's power would get taken away, so he would have to stay on the revolutionaries' good side and follow their demands. The king didn't seem to like how he didn't have as much power anymore, so he decided to flee to Austria with Marie Antoinette. The border guards saw through their disguises and both were sent back to Paris. The French people saw King Louis as a traitor and he had his powers taken away. He would still remain king but with many restrictions. In 1792 the National Assembly declared war on Austria and Prussia because the French believed that European monarchies would want to restore King Louis' power. The Prussian Duke of Brunswick told the revolutionaries that if something happens to King Louis, Paris would burn. This made the revolutionaries want something to happen to the king. The revolutionaries would storm the king's palace. King Louis would take refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly. The assembly held a vote to suspend the monarchy. Everyone voted for the monarchy to be suspended and King Louis would be demoted to Citizen Louis. The French Republic has been created. Louis was sent to a prison so the French could know what he's doing at all times. Democracy and equality are now finally a part of France. But even with all of this, fear was felt among the French people. You see, the French Republic wanted to get rid of anything that resembled the monarchy. Priests were deported or arrested. The French government arrested thousands of people they suspect to be against the French Republic. Most of those people were members of the clergy and aristocracy. Basically, the French Republic was extremely against the monarchy. Prussia and Austria were making progress in France. Thousands of troops were sent to the front line to push back the Prussians and Austrians. But that meant Paris was left with no one to secure the prisons. People like Jean-Paul Marat thought the prisoners would plan to escape and take control of Paris. Mobs broke into the prisons and many people were killed. This event is known as the September Massacres. After that, Citizen Louis would be executed by guillotine. France managed to push back the attacks from Austria and Prussia, but then more countries joined to fight against France. France decided to conscript many people to war. This didn't stand well with people, so counter-revolutionary uprisings began and ended about a year later. Jean-Paul Marat was told by a woman that she had a list of enemies. He invited her for meetings. thinking he'll see a list of enemies. Instead, he got killed by Charlotte Corday. After that, Robespierre and the radicals sent out spies into the streets to find people who were against the French Republic. Many people were sent to the guillotine. Marie Antoinette was also killed during the Reign of Terror. Robespierre seemed to start going crazy to the point where he thought he was God. In July of 1794, Robespierre told the Jacobins that he considers many of them to be against the French Republic. The Jacobins sent Robespierre to the guillotine, marking the end of the Reign of Terror.